Hello, I am Samantha Tomlinson,
And I am Kevin Tracy.
and this is Movie Reel. Yay!
Woo!
And
Welcome back.
it's our first episode, excluding the intro. And if you listen to
Yeah,
that, thank you. That's super nice. Um,
we
um,
really appreciate the love, people.
so it is brand new year. What's any resolutions, Kevin?
See more good movies.
Always.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, duh.
as well as
Yeah.
some bad ones here and there.
I mean, my sister wants to see Cats.
Oh
her
gosh,
her friend said they said they want to see it, but they want to like get high and go see it. Which I'm like,
lovely.
I mean, that sounds accurate. I've seen a bunch of reviews that said like, I don't want to say don't see it. It's quite a shit show. I've seen that a couple of times where I'm like, so they're just letting us know it's terrible, but that's the idea.
That movie basically just looks like the new Emoji Movie. It just looks like it's garbage, but it's going to be entertaining garbage.
The problem is with Cats, there's not much of a plot to begin with. I remember I saw it. My high school was doing it, and I had to go because I was part of drama, and I had no idea what was going on. It's just there was a review I was watching where he's like, every review is every character just introducing themselves, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the show.
Yeah,
The plot's
I
very
literally know
little.
nothing about. I literally know nothing about Cats other than what I've seen in the trailers.
It's about
That's
I think
the
it's
most like.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's like it's like they're going to the Jellicle ball or something, and one of them is gonna get to move on because cats have 9 lives, so one gets to move on to their next life or something. I think that's the idea. Like, but it's not clear because it's just song, 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 and very little plot. And I was realizing, just I don't know, it's just not a very good. It's not. I don't know. It's a weird. I think it's got good music, but it's not really. There's not a lot of plot, so it's hard to make a good movie when there's very little to go on already. So
yeah, and I was just kind of surprised with how star-studded it is. It's got like Judy Dench, Ian McKellen, Taylor Swift, so many people in there that is like, why are you here again? I didn't realize that this
oh,
was going to be like the like summer blockbuster movie that everyone wanted to be in.
because it's a musical and it's Tom Hooper who directed Les Mis and I believe The Danish Girl. Like he's got a pretty good rep.
Yeah,
So it's just weird. Ricky Gervais, I don't know if you watched the Golden Globes or whoever watched the Golden Globes, he did in his monologue he
I only
talked
saw
about
the
it.
Ricky Gervais bit.
Oh god, it was hilarious. It kept getting like cut off because it's Ricky Gervais, and the whole joke is that he's done this so many times he just doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, it's like what are they gonna do? Ask him to not host? Fast forward to next year. Hey, you want to host?
He should just only host. He should just only host. Like that's just like I mean, nobody. It's not saying nobody else wants to do it, but I feel like he's so perfect for it. He nails
Yeah,
it, and it's. He said a couple years ago when he hosted one of the times he hosted, he's like, the Golden Globes is to the Oscars is like the Kardashians to the royal family. It's a bit drunker and trashier. Like that is pretty spot on.
yeah, yeah. Ricky Gervais can have the Golden Globes, and Billy Crystal can have the Oscars.
Oh god, Billy Crystal.
Like Billy Crystal's hosted like it's the Oscars, right? He's hosted that like a dozen
He's
times.
hosted that a couple times, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
seems like
yeah,
every time I watch it, he's hosting.
just yeah. He hosts, yeah. um, but anyway,
So yeah,
so we're
so
not going to
yeah,
talk just about cats and the Golden
yeah, we're
Globes
not talking about Cats. We're talking about a movie that I'm actually really excited about. Joker, starring Joaquin Phoenix.
and cast. There's no,
Yes,
or I guess Zazie Beetz. Am I saying that right? From she was in Deadpool, um, and she was
I
Domino, right?
I believe so.
And
I could not even. like attempt to correctly say her name.
I'm
I basically have to hear it said like
yeah.
from her or someone else because like it's gonna be like an Adita Menzel kind of moment with like John Travolta. I have no idea how
Oh,
to say her name.
and he said like Adele Kazim or something, which is like
Yeah,
completely off. Some of those letters are not even in her name. Like, come on.
yeah, but
I-
yeah. So like, what was your like first impression about the Joker
so
when yeah, when you first saw it?
when I first saw it, well, or let's back up a little bit. I think so. Everyone
Okay,
they announced. So yes, yeah. The concept they announced that they were making a solo Joker movie, which I thought was really cool. Um,
yeah,
and then everyone got really excited when Joaquin Phoenix cast as the Joker. Who?
which I thought was phenomenal casting.
Oh yeah. Oh for sure.
Yeah,
And um, it it was pretty successful. Shocker. Um, it got a audience. I thought it was interesting though. So audiences gave it an 88%, and critics gave it a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes. Which I
really,
think,
critics didn't like
yeah,
it that much.
I which so 69%. Anyone who doesn't look at Rotten Tomatoes, I don't know why you wouldn't. Um, it's out of 100, obviously, and 69's pretty. 69's to me that's decent. That's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
60,
worth your time.
65 to like 7. I would say maybe 70 something is pretty decent. Um, that to me, that usually going into it, that means I don't read reviews necessarily. I might read headlines. Occasionally I'll read reviews. I more just look at the score because to me that's enough. I've seen enough movies to know like how low or high, like that doesn't, that's enough for me. Um,
Yeah,
and so I was kind of surprised I thought it would have been a little higher when I saw it, but then when I saw it, I do think so. My first impressions, I overall thought it was really, really. Again, it's been a couple months, so didn't just come out. This came out was it October? Um,
yeah, it just got released on like like DVD and Blu-ray
yeah.
and all that.
I thought it was I thought the story was great. I thought it was everything
Yeah,
about it. I thought was really good. It was just very different, and there were some things about it I wasn't expecting. A lot good, a lot bad. Not like no, not a lot bad. Mostly good.
yeah, no.
Uh,
When I first heard that they were making a solo Joker movie, I thought that was like, oh, are they just trying to do what Sony
Star.
did with Venom? And I was like a
Oh,
little, I was a
yeah.
little apprehensive about that, and because Venom wasn't the best movie, and I'm also kind of nervous about the new Morbius movie because they just released the trailer for that today, and that looks a little better.
Oh,
I'm yeah
is that
with
the thing you were telling me about? Like, it's like a vampire thing, or is that something
yeah
else? Yeah.
it's like another villain from like Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery, starring Jared Leto, former Joker from the Suicide Squad, which not a fan, but this one looks a little. This one's kind of taking it in its own direction. Of Morbius is this like doctor who has like this rare like blood disorder, and he's trying to cure himself, and he starts doing some experiments with bats, and then he slowly just turns into a vampire because he like absorbs like the genetic makeup of bats, specifically vampire bats. So he
Of
slowly
course.
starts turning so it literally starts slowly turning into a vampire, but a living vampire because when
So it's like the Fly
yeah, it's
or
basically that,
the
but not
lizard
yeah,
doctor
but he's
guy in an Amazing Spider-Man. I'm spacing on his name. It's been a while since I've seen that.
Electro.
No, the first one. He like yeah, it's
Oh,
been a
the
real.
lizard.
Yes, I'm spacing. I'm totally
Okay,
spacing on the name. It's
yeah, yeah.
um
A
yeah.
lot of Spider-Man's villains don't have the most creative names, but Morbius is pretty good. But
Okay,
yeah,
yeah.
instead of like him actually like turning like into like like a man bat kind of creature, he's literally just turning like looking a lot more like a traditional vampire, just like really pale, long like claws, giant like teeth, like fangs.
Mhm.
Um, the trailer looks pretty good, and he looks pretty spot on from how Morbius looks in the comics. So I'm actually kind of excited to see how that turns out.
Mm,
I'm still a little apprehensive after Venom, which I'm
yeah.
still surprised did so well, and that it's getting a
Getting a
sequel.
sequel. I haven't seen
Yeah,
Venom. I just have heard your complaints. I remember somebody was talking about it and you went, "Oh, Venom, it was hilarious." That's all I know
yeah,
about it. I haven't seen it yet. I
yeah.
would like to.
It's
I know despite the I would like to. But I
but yeah,
yeah, it seems kind of like they're going. But the thing is, the Joker is definitely a worthy enough villain. I don't know about enough about
yeah,
Venom, but Joker is a very worthy and famous enough villain to get a solo movie. Um,
absolutely.
there's a lot there, and there's plenty of. I think my so actually we'll kind of summarize the movie a little bit first. So Arthur Fleck, who is going to be the Joker, played by
Yes,
Joaquin Phoenix. He's kind of a struggling comedian, or not even struggling. He wants to
he's
be a
not good.
comedian, and he's not very good at it.
Yeah,
Um,
he's not even a comedian. He's like a party clown who's like hired to like go to
hold a
like
sign
children's
and
parties,
stuff, and
children's
like,
hospitals, and even then he's not that good at it because he's
yeah.
so uh odd because he has like this disorder where he constantly laughs at any situation where he's uncomfortable and
Mhm.
he's constantly uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it's like, what an unsettling, uncomfortable thing to have. Just laughing
Yeah,
uncomfortable when you're not even just when you're uncomfortable. I mean, I laugh when I'm uncomfortable, but like when you can't even control it. And I did love that
yeah,
scene where the woman, he's like it's pretty early on. He starts laughing. The woman starts like, "What's wrong with you?" And she holds up a little thing saying, like, a little
yeah.
like, "It's
He
not
gives
my
her a card.
card."
It's like I
It's
yeah.
not.
It's like I can't stop laughing. It's not my fault. I'm sorry.
Um. I Yeah. And anyway, so we kind of it gets a pretty good, really quick, like very very clear on who he is, what his troubles are, and he's like a clown. He's hired to like hold up like signs saying, "Hey, like come here," one of those guys. He Pretty early on we see him getting beaten down. He loses his sign. He loses his job because he lost the sign, right? And
No, he loses his job because he has a gun, so he won't get robbed again.
oh right, I'm jumping ahead. Yeah, but yes,
Yeah, yeah.
him
One of
losing
his
the sign was.
coworkers gives him a gun. And's like, "Hey, if anyone messes with you, just flash this thing. No one's gonna mess with you again." And then for some reason,
Oh, that was at the kids'
he
hospital.
takes that to a children's hospital. It falls on the floor,
You know
and
what?
then the
That was
hospital's
right for
like,
him to get
"Uh,
fired.
you can't bring that here." So
um,
they tell his boss, and he gets fired.
and or so, but I just remember the him losing his sign was kind of a like
A turning
came out
point.
of his paycheck. That was It was pretty early on, but he it was problematic. It wasn't really It wasn't like a big old point. It wasn't like a pivotal moment in the plot, but it was definitely like it's part of his job, and that was I remember that being a problem. But yeah,
Yeah,
so yeah, and it's every I and we're seeing so his work kind of sucks. He then at home, so in his apartment, there's really nice neighbor lady Zazie Beats who has
yeah,
a single mom, and she kind of shares his views on that Gotham City is going to hell, and it's filled with you know asshole rich people, and it's just who don't care
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
they don't care about the poverty that's in their city. And
Yeah, this portrayal of Gotham City is probably one of like the more like realistic portrayals of Gotham that I've seen
is
in like
well
movie
done.
form
Yeah.
because
I
it just looks like it reminded me so much of RoboCop, of how shitty of a situation it is for everyone involved and how crime is running rampant to the point where the police are there, like there's a police presence, but it just doesn't seem to be making
Yeah,
as much as like really any impact to stop any like potential crime wave, which does eventually happen in this movie.
I think what I something else yeah about the thing about Gotham I really loved in it lived loved in this movie was that it wasn't just like it was just portrayed. It was Gotham, but it was just portrayed as just a city. It wasn't anything
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? It wasn't like
yeah,
it was being really universal, which I really liked because
yeah. It
yeah,
wasn't just like trying to do like a copycat of like, oh, this is like a New York metropolis, like
it was
utopia
just
where
city.
everyone
Yeah.
can do anything here. It's like, no, it's just a grimy city.
And it could have, yeah, and I think it was trying to be kind of universal, which I think was
Yeah,
not in a, I don't think it's a bad thing, because yeah, again, it could have been, I mean, it could have been any city, but I think the reason why it's Gotham, we know it's Gotham and believe that it is Gotham, is because it is consistent in every Batman, almost every Batman anything, that Gotham
yeah,
is filled with problems of crime and poverty and city and people that are just turning their backs on each other. So I thought that was all executed really, really beautifully. Um
yeah. It is really cool, kind of seeing like a Gotham pre Batman of just seeing how bad it actually was before he kind of stepped in and kind of cleaned things up a little bit, made it
yeah,
a little bit easier for everyone to kind of navigate through life.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so Arthur Fleck is dealing, you know, his job sucks, and he goes home and kind of tends to his elderly
kind of
mother.
crazy mother.
um
Yeah,
and
who I gotta say they have like a weirdly close relationship because like there's several
yeah.
times where he's just like, he's like bathing her even though she seems like she's
Yeah,
perfectly capable of doing that on her own. Um,
yeah. I was
and
curious, what
she's
year is there supposed to be a specific year?
it kind of has like a weird kind of 70s kind of vibe to
But
it
it could be
because
any
the
year.
show.
Yeah,
Well, yeah, because the show that that him and his mother always watch, the show that Robert De Niro's character is on, kind of has like this like old late night show kind of Jimmy
yeah,
Carson kind of feel
yeah,
to it.
yeah, yeah.
Um, just like very like putting on a show rather than just whatever like Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers are kind of doing of just them reading monologues and making fun of the news.
Yeah,
That's what Jimmy Carson did, but he kind
yeah.
of did it. He kind of made it was more of a spectacle of like talking with like the hosts and having a bit more of a dialogue than just, "Hey, tell us about your movie that you're making."
Yeah. Um yeah, and we so he we're seeing though so the show, he absolutely loves this show. Very transfixed by this, really loves this guy, just, and there's that scene where he is imagining himself being in the audience and then gets essentially pulled on stage and
Yeah,
makes people laugh, and then uh I need to look up, I forget what the what the name is. But Robert De Niro
yeah,
says like, "Oh, I wish I had a son like you," and I'm like,
yeah.
"Okay."
It's like one of
Like,
like the more like it's like it's both wholesome and heartbreaking seeing that scene because this is what Arthur Fleck wants the most in life is to be accepted
Murray
and kind of have like
Franklin. Murray Franklin.
what Murray Franklin. Okay, yeah, but
Anyway, that's the name
yeah,
of the show.
it's like
Anyway.
he idolizes this man as like this is like his ideal father figure. So seeing like that scene of just like I wish I had a son like you. It was like you're very good for taking care of your mother. It's like thanks, I try my best. Like and you've succeeded, Arthur. It's like you're doing the Lord's work. It's just like oh that is just
It is
heartbreaking.
very
And
sad. This is
and
not an
it's just
uplifting movie, if that wasn't clear.
yeah no this movie is so dark and depressing, but it's also very beautifully written
Raw and very real.
how
Yeah.
they're able to portray a Joker pre like breakdown. Like
Yeah.
I also really like this movie because it's not necessarily taking from one individual source of the Joker's origin, like the Killing Joke or something like that. Which I really thought that they were going to try to take some inspiration of just how. And
That
for those of you
was,
not
yeah.
familiar with the Killing Joke is pretty much just the Joker, like who's just like a normal kind of run of the mill guy who is a failing comedian, just goes through a bunch of series of obstacles in one bad day, and how that one bad day can change you for the rest of your life, and how he just eventually snaps and more or less turns into the Joker overnight.
Which is kind of what happens in this.
Yeah, but
but not
it's
it's
not
not
overnight. It's
it's
a
not
very
overnight. It's
long
like
and it's a very prolonged process, which I really liked,
poor
and it was
choice of
more
words,
of
but
an
it
original
was
story.
yeah, poor choice of words, but it was a he snapped. He had his trigger, and then after
Yeah,
that, it
he
was
triggers, and he's yeah
it's
he is a good guy. He's just dealt like the worst hand possible.
and that's so two things. I was so that was so the thing about yeah the Joker lore. That was something I was thinking about that because so I'm not definitely not an expert on like Batman like universe. And I was I was wondering that because the his I was thinking about most my knowledge of Batman comes from two things. Um like Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and the Star Kid Batman musical. and
Oh my god! So
which you
literally
need
one source.
which you I really encourage you watch, but I encourage
I
everybody to
have seen
watch.
some. I've seen some clips of that, but yeah,
Anyway,
I digress. Move on. Yeah.
anyway, um and I was noticing like his lore and uh Heath Ledger's Joker, he kind of says how he a little bit of how he I mean, we don't know the whole backstory, but we get like a little like tidbit of why he's here and why and what drove him to this and stuff. And it didn't match at all. What he says is completely different than what happened in Joker. So that was just it was
Yeah.
when I was kind of I mean, I understand going off on your own and doing something different. I think that was just my curiosity was where is this information coming from? Is it supposed to be canon? Is it like or is there's all these different like
There's
versions, right, of how he becomes the Joker?
yeah, that's the problem with like a lot of like like Marvel and DC stuff is that there isn't
One set
I
pat.
yeah, there isn't like one defined timeline. There's just multiple timelines that just happen
What
to be
could have
running at the same
happened? Yeah.
time, and at times they intersect, making it canon in multiple timelines, but not necessarily canon in all timelines. Which is why there's so many different origins for the Joker. Like there's the Killing Joke. There's one where he was literally just like a mob hitman who then fell into a vat of chemicals and bleached himself, and he became insane from that. There's the Heath Ledger Joker, which really has no origin. He just kind of was that.
Appears.
Um, but there's just a lot of stuff with Joker that is just kind of shrouded in mystery, and the origin is one of those things.
Okay.
Um,
But also isn't that kind of the
yeah,
point because the whole I remember I was this was a while ago. I was working on something and I was kind of struggling with my villain and I remember asked my I was asking my sister something and she was the point that brought up like the Joker who just creates chaos for the sake of chaos. And to me,
yeah.
there's all these different types of villains and I realize the thing is as an audience, it doesn't matter who it is. We want to relate. We want to know. We want to understand why.
Yeah.
And if you're asking yourselves these questions, to me that's usually a sign that the character is not written well. But if you're not if the information's not given and you're asking yourself these questions, but if the information isn't given and you're not asking yourself, then to me that means it's written really well because that means
Yeah.
you don't really care, that you're just
Yeah,
more
well,
fascinated with who this person is right now. And I think
yeah,
yeah.
and that's kind of what they did with Dark Knight Joker with Heath
Yeah.
Ledger. He's not really given any real backstory. He's just written
And
extremely well that you're more focused on the here
yeah,
and now rather than the how did he become this.
and that's
Um,
hard. That is so hard to do
it is extremely hard, and I
because like
applaud
it's
them
we
for
want
doing
to
that. Heath
yeah
Ledger is easily one of my favorite Jokers, followed like right behind Mark Hamill.
like we want to yeah because we want to know why things happen, and if we are questioning that, it all falls apart. And if we don't question that, that means it's strong enough that we don't need to. And I can't tell you
Yeah,
like how much I love that. Like I think
yeah,
it was like Maleficent, the like original Maleficent is what made me think that, because I realized as a kid I don't think I was like, I wonder why she's doing all this, other than the
yeah.
fact
It's
that
like
she wasn't
other
invited. I
than
just accept. I think part of it was just culturally, I just accepted it. because like, oh
Yeah,
yeah,
it
she's mad.
just it's
But
like,
as I
well,
got
we have a good guy, we need a bad guy.
yeah, but as I got older, I'm like, I still kind of don't think I really cared that much because she's so fun to watch that I don't think I don't overall care. And that's
Yeah,
the thing about so Joker I thought was really so yeah, like and so for this I was fine totally fine with getting his backstory. And yeah, I was just that was the thing was I don't know enough of all of his different origins that I was curious, is
yeah,
this completely made up? I figured it wasn't completely made up. I was just
yeah.
curious of like, is this
It's
supposed to
just
match?
I really liked how this origin kind of had a more realistic tone than a lot of the other ones of just like, oh, he was a mob hitman who fell in a vat of chemicals, or he was a failing comedian. It's like this one is just you're taking like a guy who has like a really like
You get
uh
it. You get what drove him to
debilitating.
do it. What drove him to becoming. That's my
Yeah, but
other thing is I've been complaining to this about to the I can't talk. I've been complaining to you about this. Horrible for a podcast. I've been complaining to you
yeah,
about this for a couple of years now, where I feel like Hollywood is just dancing around. They don't want to give us a villain to love because we need a hero. So, like for example, with Venom, I remember everybody was so mad because in the trailer they're saying anti-hero and they're like, no, he's a villain, just make him a I know
he
there's some
yeah
that he's might be an anti, but he's typically a villain, just
yeah
make
yeah. Yeah, he's like one of like Spider-Man's like most recognizable villains from his entire rogues gallery of oh god, like
but
decades of
yeah,
him being around. I mean, and it's only just been like the past 10 years or so where Venom has kind of taken a more anti-hero role and
which I
even has like
can
a second there's even like a secondary hero called Anti-Venom who literally just goes around fighting other like evil symbiotes like
yeah,
Carnage and stuff like that.
which I can totally get on board with. I'm always
Yeah,
down for I love when dark characters that maybe kind of villainous characters are kind
do
of
dark
taking
stuff.
do dark stuff but also are taking a path of like redemption and don't want to be I'm always on board with I can always get on board with that. I think my bigger
Yeah,
issue is when I want to watch somebody a hero become a villain and they just were Hollywood's been dancing around doing it for so long. And like when back to Maleficent, when the live action Maleficent came out, and I was kind of I enjoyed it and whatnot, but I was annoyed because I'm like, I don't want to see her being a hero. I wanted to see Sleeping Beauty from her perspective. I wanted to know why she was doing this and what drove her to do this. I wanted to see her as a
yeah,
villain. And so when I walked out of Joker, that was the one thing I was glad was they didn't they gave us reasons and to relate to him and all that. And I was glad that yeah, he all by the end he was very kind of had some madness
yeah.
and mania in him, and
I,
he is a
I
villain.
also kind yeah, and I would absolutely love to see like a movie where they you see like the hero go from like being the hero and then slowly turning into the villain. And I
Like I
felt like
mean, even with
in,
even like they even
yeah,
could do it
there's
with Anakin. They even did it. So why can't they do it again? Like it's like oh
yeah,
god.
but that one had varying success and it was
I mean,
already an
yes,
established timeline.
for sure. Okay, fair enough.
Like
Fair
you
enough.
knew like that it's like oh Anakin Skywalker oh he's gonna be Darth Vader like it was just a matter of
Oh,
when.
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Fair
Like
enough.
it wasn't that wasn't much of a surprise there. It was
Yeah.
just like we all
What?
knew how it was gonna happen. It was just like
Yeah.
okay what's gonna do it?
When's it gonna? It only matter.
What's
Okay.
this guy's turning point?
Yeah.
But no, I would love to see a movie where you see like the hero turn into a villain and a show. This is kind of an odd one for me, but I absolutely love the show, and I think you know what it is. Danny Phantom. Now, hear me out. Hear me out here. Hear me out here. Throughout that entire show, everyone's just giving him shit because, like, oh, he's a ghost, so he must be evil. So
Invisible
everyone
Bill.
immediately treats him evil. So it's like it wouldn't be that much of a stretch for him to just be told that he's evil for so long that he just eventually becomes evil.
Wouldn't
And
that
I
be
kind of
interesting?
disappoint, and I'm kind of disappointed that Butch Hartman didn't do something with that. I
Wouldn't
mean, he
that have
kind of did with like the Ultimate Enemy, but that was literally just a one episode thing.
wouldn't that have been really interesting that as a concept because we have so many origins of like oh like I mean I know Spider-Man's really the one I'm thinking of, but like
Yeah,
somebody they seem like a normal person but they're just like uh superhero on the side or whatever, but the idea of someone being a villain. I know Death Note maybe is kind of going into that, but the anime, but I mean that led me
Nah, kinda, not really. I mean,
not
that's more of
really.
like an anti-hero of just like, let's see how long I can do this before I become the villain. It,
Okay,
it,
okay, okay.
it's pretty much like, oh, I'm doing bad things for a kind of good reason, and just gets to a point where it's like him just constantly doing bad things to justify his bad behavior.
Okay. Okay. But you know what I mean. I feel like
Yeah,
that they
I know what you mean, but yeah,
um I guess they kind of I'm
we
not
have
saying
veered so far off course from the
not really. We're
Joker.
still talking about villains. But anyway, so yeah, so the Joker, Arthur has a really we're seeing that he has a really shitty job, shitty life. His that scene, that line where his mom made she said something. I don't know. She was trying to be honest, but it came off just so rude, and the whole audience was
Yeah,
all like, "Damn!" Do you know what I mean? When
yeah.
she like,
She's
don't you
like
have to be
brutally
funny?
honest. It's
Or
like,
like,
it's like you're. She pretty much just tells him that he's never been funny. Um,
yeah,
and that slowly leads into like one of like my favorite lines in the movie. It's like, my whole life I thought my life was a tragedy. Turns out my life was a comedy.
yeah. Oh
And
my,
it's like,
yeah,
that is such a good line for this movie, because
yeah,
his life really is like, it really is a tragic life,
yeah,
because he later finds out that, like, when he was a kid, that he was just like abused and like like found like half starved, and his mom throughout the entire movie tells him that it's like, oh, your father is
Oh,
is Mr. Wayne, head of Wayne Tech. When I worked there, like,
so
he's your
yeah.
father. It's like, and we later find out that that's nuts. Like, that's not true.
So
She's just crazy.
well, that's okay. So that's the thing. So she's writing to Mr. She's writing to her. Does he? I forget. Does he know she's writing to Mr. Wayne? She knows she's writing to her old boss, asking,
Yeah,
and he's like,
yeah.
why? And
She yeah, she tells Arthur that it was like, oh, I'm writing to. I worked for him for so many years. He always takes care of his
he would hate to
employees, so
see
he'll
us
take
this
care of
way,
us.
and he knows it. And then finally, he always mails her letters, and he finally reads it, and basically realizes his father is uh what is his first name?
I think it's
I almost said
Thomas Wayne.
okay,
Thomas Wayne.
I almost said Bruce, and I'm like,
No, it's like,
wow.
no, no, no. Bruce is like 8 in this movie.
Damn. Oh, yeah. So yeah, and then he goes. There's that scene where he goes to Wayne Manor, and okay, so there's a young kid out there playing, and he goes and Arthur puts his hand through the gate and like touches him, and I'm like, okay, that is a personal space. That's too much. And then
Yeah,
a British butler pops out of nowhere and it tells him to back off. And the thing was, I know that was supposed. I was whispering to my friend. I'm like, so is this supposed to be Alfred? Because I feel like
yep.
Alfred is. I know it's supposed to be Alfred now, but like at the time, like Alfred, it didn't. None of it seemed like Alfred to me. Like, and also we're also spoiled though because the like with Michael Caine's
Michael
portrayal.
Caine.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
almost said Michael Caine.
There's been like a lot of different like like interpretations of, like, Alfred. Like, there's one where he's just kind of like really kind of like snobby and sarcastic to like some of the other heroes, and just like, it's like, oh, Master Wayne, you shouldn't come here with bullet wounds. I just cleaned up the place. Now you're dripping blood all over the carpet. It's just like, oh, shut the fuck up, Alfred.
um, yeah, I really like that
Like,
scene because yeah.
there's a lot of different interpretations. Like,
Okay.
there's even in the show Gotham, like, Alfred's literally just like an ex like MI6 like operative, so he's just like a discount James Bond, and he was literally hired like right out of the military.
Discount.
It's like, hey, you want to work for me and protect my son? It's like, all right. It's like, what do I have to do? It's like, oh, normal butler stuff. It's like, butler stuff's like, yeah, why
So
not?
basically, Alfred in Gotham, like in the show Gotham, is like the
Yeah,
equivalent of the movie The Pacifier.
more or less, but more British.
Okay, more British, but yes. Okay.
More British, less Vin Diesel.
Um, and So yeah, 2000. Anyone that remembers 2005 Success, The Pacifier, um, with Vin Diesel.
No one does.
um. Anyway, so I did like that. I did like the idea of that Waynes are that the Waynes are very much Thomas Wayne's very much a presence, and in this movie the Waynes are very much, and so that was my thing was because so I know it's we later find out oh no Bruce Wayne is not I'm not Bruce Thomas Wayne Thomas Wayne is not Arthur Fleck's father, but my
Yeah.
friends were kind of interpreting it as that was we find out no, but it wasn't really like for all we know, that was wrong because they're saying he was powerful. So there's the scene he basically goes to find out for sure, right? At it's like
Yeah,
a
he goes to he goes to like his like the local like hospital and like checks out like, hey, I want to see like my personal records so like I know like who my father is. And the guy's like apprehensive to like show him because he looked through it. It's like, oh, there's like a lot of really messed up stuff in here. It's like, you sure you want to see this? And he literally just takes it and steals it. It's like public information that is like about him. Goes
and
through it, and
yeah,
it's just like a bunch of like stuff about how he was abused as a child by like some like alcoholic like father figure that
hmm
was like I, it basically was just like all the stuff that says that like his mother was like crazy and deranged. They don't know who the father is. He was raised by like this like alcoholic abuser that his like mother like
is
was like
no longer
boyfriend like with
yeah
was with and
yeah
because of her like disassociation she like more or less kind of ignored Arthur and left him at the mercy of this abuser, and that was what caused her to get let go and ultimately fired from Wayne Enterprises.
hmm and
And
because I think that
that
was the idea was Thomas Wayne's powerful enough that he could have totally changed the fact that he is his father. So my friends were all like, "I think he is."
yeah.
So I think it to me it came off more like you can kind of draw your own conclusions. Um,
Yeah, I feel like they kind of left that. Yeah, they left that up to kind of like draw your own conclusions. But there's also like, because they, I don't even think they ever specifically say like who Arthur Fleck's father is. So for all we know, it
it,
could be Thomas Wayne,
I just think that's
and then that
very
also puts a really cool dynamic on Batman and Joker. They're brothers.
as well as I was noticing that Mr. and Mrs. Wayne in this movie are very old, like very way older than you would think for parents of an 8-year-old. So,
Yeah,
it does kind of make sense. The evidence is definitely there, but it's definitely a you decide for yourself. I kind of think it didn't seem as final for me that I would say, oh no, I don't think it's as because we didn't really get any more information to change our minds other than I don't know. It could I feel like it could be I think that's an interesting take on it for sure. Um
yeah.
and so anyway, yeah, now he's finding out all this horrible stuff. As well as I think did we skip him when he finally snaps
No, this
or
is
that's
pretty
kind
much
of
like the catalyst that causes him to snap.
he's
Because
on
later
this
on in
yeah.
the movie, after he learns all this, like he learns that oh no, wait, he's adopted. He learns that he's adopted, um, and this causes him to like snap that like like my entire life, everything that I have been told is a lie. This causes him to snap. He then smothers his mother in her hospital bed, killing her. Then he gets invited onto the Murray Franklin show after like being made fun of on that show for like a failed stand-up bit
So
where he's just
yeah.
laughing nervously and uncontrollably on stage for like 10 minutes. Um,
Wait,
and then
no, his mother.
he's
I don't. His mother's not dead yet. I don't think so.
yeah, no, he killed her before he went on to the Murray Franklin show.
Yeah, but I think we're jumping ahead. So he kills. He finally he does. Yeah, he snaps. He's on the subway, and there's these two kind of like Wall Street type like guys, maybe in like their 20s or 30s, who are being kind of bugging this woman that's just minding her own business. She gets up and she kind of sees Arthur's there, and then she eventually like gets up and like moves, and then he he basically tells them to knock it off, and
Yeah,
they won't, and he still has that gun from his job, and he just snaps, and he
and
kills them.
kills them
Thing
all.
is, one of them, the first one, they were beating him up though. So one
Yeah,
of them, the
they were
first
kicking the
one,
shit
it's
out of
self
him.
defense. The second one, the doors to the subway open. It's pretty yikes.
Yeah,
The
he
guy's running.
literally hunts
He
like the last two
oh
guys
god, it
down
was
after and like unloads like an entire clip into these guys.
yeah. I think this was actually after his. This is after he quits. He gets fired. Quits his job. This is after he gets fired,
Yeah,
and he goes back to his apartment. And goes to Zazie Beet's apartment because they're kind of friendly, and kisses her. And he's in full clown costume, and I'm like, that's all it takes. Oh, that's terrifying. Not even just that
yeah,
he. I mean, so basically, it's like he has the confidence to do it now, but also if anyone approached me in full clown makeup and kissed me, I would have nightmares forever. Like I'm
uh,
like that was
yeah.
okay, and I guess
What, you're not a fan of the Insane Clown Posse?
oh god, and
What,
it's
you don't like Juggalos?
no, ew. But then it's kind of weird because the whole from there it's like after Arthur kills those two guys, and it's all over the news. He's not at all freaking out about. I mean, at the time he kind of freaks out about it, but he also is more just like, "Oh, that's funny. Those guys in the newspaper. I'm the one that they're looking for." And
Yeah,
he just it's like his whole and he thinks everything seems to be getting better for him. He has a girlfriend now, and then I think then he finds out that his mom ends up eventually in the hospital, all that, and then we find
yeah.
out
She has like a stroke or something.
shortly after that he goes to his girlfriend's apartment, and then we find out it's very clear she is not his girlfriend. He made up the whole thing. She does exist. She is his neighbor, and
Yeah,
he breaks
she
into her
lives right next to him,
apartment.
but
Yeah.
she really doesn't know him other than the fact, like, you live right next door to me, because he just shows up in her apartment one day, and it's like, what are you doing in my apartment? Get out of here! Like, please, I have a daughter. She's like very scared that this strange man is now in her apartment, crying his eyes out.
And it's just so interesting to watch because Joaquin Phoenix just does a really solid job. But he definitely, it's like his character kind of, he's not freaking out about what he does. He's definitely embracing it. And I kind of, again, it's been a couple months since I've seen it. I'm sure I know I'm gonna rewatch it, and then I'm gonna have more to even more to say. But
Yeah,
which is what always happens. Um, I kind of it seemed very like, yeah, he's definitely kind of like coming alive, which is very unsettling.
yeah. Yeah,
Um,
after like killing these guys, he's getting like some like it's like, oh, is this clown psychopath? Because like they don't know who it is. All they saw is that a clown killed these guys on the subway.
and it
This is like
becomes
the only
like,
time he's really ever gotten any like positive feedback of anything that he's done in his life. It's like, wow, is this guy like a menace, or is this guy a hero for killing these like corrupt Wall Street guys?
but it becomes kind
These
of like a symbol, kind of like the
yeah,
Mockingjay in Hunger Games. How all
yeah,
through after the first one, they're seeing it everywhere. It's like sparking rebellion, and
yeah,
because all these people that are in the same position as Arthur are now being like, they're proud, or like, yes, somebody stood up for us, and all that. And so during this, he finally decides to go and do some. He goes to like a open mic night type thing for stand up, and he is so uncomfortable and nervous. He just laughs,
yeah, he laughs and kind of gets says like a couple like incoherent like phrases and words to like some of the punchlines of his jokes without any setup because he's so nervous and uncomfortable. And someone's filming that, and then they put that on the Murray Franklin show, and then Robert De Niro is just making fun of him on his show. And then
and
they invite him on the show. It's like, hey, you want to do some of your bit on our show? I think it'd be really funny.
by up and building up to this point, he's basically just he's very like he's slowly becoming more and more out of control. Just before, like, is it day of the people he used to work with stop by his
Yeah,
apartment.
it's day of.
Day of people he used to work with stop by his apartment, and it's the one who gave him the gun in the first place. And
Yeah.
and he kills him. I'm glad he didn't kill it. There was also, so there's like a midget guy who also he worked with who was, he didn't kill him.
He
I'm
was
glad he did. I'm glad. I'm like, no, you kill him. He hasn't done anything to you.
yeah, no, he is actually like one of the few people who's like treated Arthur with like
Respect.
like a smidge of respect that he deserves. It's like, yeah, it's like you have a shitty job, I have a shitty job. Let's not be shitty to each other. We're already in a bad boat already, and he lets him go after brutally killing like his coworker right in front of him in his own apartment, and then tells him, like, "Oh, I'm going to be on the Murray Franklin show. You should watch it. It's going to be a blast."
So, and prepping for his appearance, he dyes his hair, he puts on his makeup, he does the whole thing, and he shows up, and he meets Murray Franklin at the studio and says, "Hey, can you let me out? When you announce me, can you call me the Joker?"
Yeah, because
You
when
called me a
he was like
Joker.
first being made fun of on the show, Murray Franklin kept going, was like, "Hey, check out this Joker." And it's like, "Hey, you called me a Joker on your show. I want you to call me that when you announce me."
And
It's
I
like,
love,
it's like,
so that
it's like,
scene,
all right,
that whole, he goes out, he's announced, he goes out, and he sits down next to Murray, and he starts talking, and he announces that, oh my god, I love this whole scene so much, because it was just building and building, and we all are just like on the edge of our seats. He basically announces that he's the one that killed the two Wall Street guys,
yeah.
and everyone's like, what?
And
Like,
it's like, wait, what the
and
fuck?
what?
And it's
And
like, yeah, and I used this gun too. And he pulls out a gun. And now everyone's freaking out in the studio, except Murray Franklin, who's like, it's like, okay,
trying
this
to
guy kind of
be
respects me.
calm,
Maybe I
yeah.
can defuse the situation.
He didn't, yeah, he was doing, I mean, what do you do in that situation? He was just trying to maintain, and he was like, you know, and everyone's freaking out. He's like, really, you think those two people deserve to die? And the Joker's now like, yeah, I do, and all that, and the audience, of course, is like, oh my god. He's like, hey, and I love this line. He says, if it was me, if I was dead, literally, like, you guys would just walk over me. You wouldn't even care. You would not notice if it was me. And I really like that, because that's the whole core of what's going on in Gotham, is that the wealthy are just completely turning their backs on the people that need them. And
Yeah,
oh god, and we just
yeah, it's like,
yeah.
yeah, it's like the only time people cared about like any murder in it was if it was like a couple like white wealthy guys, rather than like this like poor guy who's like getting his ass kicked for no reason. Who
And yeah,
because literally in the beginning of the movie he gets like completely like beaten up and mugged, uh, like like really close to the street by like a bunch of 12-year-olds because he wanted his sign back,
yeah, yeah,
and no one batted an eye because there's just like a clown limping. He's like all bloody and bruised. No one pays attention to him in any way, shape, or form in the beginning of the movie.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And it's just very like, it's yeah, and you understand where he's coming from, why he's doing it. So he's on the show, he has a gun, he's announced that he's the Joker, he's the
The
one that
killer.
killed, he's the killer, and everyone's freaking out, and it's just escalating and escalating, and finally on TV, and we all know it's coming, like, it's not at all subtle, you can totally feel it, and Joker kills Murray Franklin, and everyone's, of course,
Live on his show.
yeah. I mean, god, talk about going viral, like, yeah, oh my god, it was pretty, it's,
Jesus.
I know. And then he's then arrested. I the ending was really, it's messed up, but it was just so good. He gets arrested. He then is then saved by it's become a movement, and he's like the leader of this movement because he's standing up for he stood up
All
for
the
himself, and
outcasts
all
of
the outcasts,
Gotham.
and they all got their
Yeah.
clown makeup on, and of course, who is one of the people, and what's going on during this time? The Waynes are at a theater. It
Yeah,
was
and
like,
they
yeah,
try to take a shortcut in an alleyway where a robbing goes completely wrong.
and it's So I kind of like that setup, but at the same time, I think that was so actually I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyway, yeah, so then that's kind of the end of the movie. And I guess there's talks for a sequel, which I think would be really interesting.
That would be interesting. I mean, you can easily tie in like Harley Quinn is just like a fangirl gone crazy of
Oh,
who just takes like her obsession to the next level.
um,
Uh, because this movie like focuses a lot on like mental illness and like how like it's a very much a parallel of like how like us as Americans have like a difficult time dealing with mental health issues and have a difficult time with like properly diagnosing that and dealing with it and properly uh medicating that.
yeah.
It's a very complicated and delicate issue. Um,
And
and I feel like
during
this movie kind
yeah,
of parallels that because he does go to therapy, does go to a lot of uh like he does take medicine for like his like condition, and he even says like in therapy it's like you want me to write about like all the bad days and all the bad thoughts, but I constantly am always having bad thoughts.
so
And
what
it's
am I
like
supposed
that
to
is a
do? Yeah.
really good like message to kind of like
Yeah.
throw into this of just how difficult it is for some people. Like he's not inherently evil, he's like become
Yeah.
evil because society made him that way, because no one knows how to cope with how he is. People rather just discard him to the side like he's garbage because he's broken.
I remember it was like I think 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade. Um wait, I want to say 7th or 8th grade. Maybe it was I don't know, middle school, high school, somewhere around that time. Um that's when maybe it was high school. It's irrelevant. Anyway, at some point around that time we started talking
Yeah,
about because I think up until a certain point as a kid, mainly through movies and TV, we all kind of have the idea, books, we all have the idea of bad people are bad, good people are good. It's black and white, and then it becomes kind of the concept kind of becomes oh, not that could be the case, but also not usually. Typically, the idea is now you are not you're born we're all born neutral, and it's our conditions, our like family, friends, how you grow up, it's in your environment, it's all these different factors, situations that play into that. And so I think this is a really good representation of that concept. um
yeah,
I think so. Also during this time when the movie was coming out was when there was a an alert, a whole everyone was on alarm was alarmed because they were really afraid that this was they I kind of I completely understand it. I kind of it was I mean sure you heard it, the whole fear of that this was basically saying oh it's okay for people with mental illnesses to um carry weapons, especially
yeah.
because in our country where we have it's God, it's horrible how often how it's become the norm having
Where we
any
have
kind of mass shootings.
constantly like shootings, and like it seemed like everywhere people were saying is like, "Hey, be careful going to this movie. You might get shot up in this theater while watching the movie."
And
Because that
even
seemed to be like everyone was talking about that, even though I don't remember hearing any legitimate threats or anything of that nature saying that like, "Oh, someone's going to shoot up this theater." It just seemed that
it was just a
like everyone,
generic like
yeah, just
threat.
everyone seemed to be like overly morbid about it, and it's like I don't understand why.
And the I remember the theater in Aurora, Colorado, where the shoot during when people were waiting in line to see Dark Knight Rises, and somebody came with a gun. So that
Yeah,
shooting, and they basically said we're not playing the Joker, which you know what I don't really blame them for. There's nothing of it being too cautious. I don't really think this is
yeah.
going to attract anybody, but I understand out of respect, like I get them not
Yeah,
wanting to do that. Like
no,
fair
I
enough.
definitely
Like
understand that. That seems like a respectable move
it
on the
is,
people who
yeah.
did die during that shooting.
So it's definitely so over. Yeah, it's definitely a heavy movie. There were a lot of good things about it. I feel like there were. So again, it got a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes, and
From critics.
from critics. And critics, this just
Yeah,
critics, it's their opinion. I don't really know. For me, I think my a lot of my it wasn't really major issues like what the hell or I can't believe this or what it was or like sloppy mistakes or anything. I think my personal issues were I felt like I was confused the lore what because there's so much I was wondering is this canon, is this just a completely new idea as
Yeah, for the most part, it was pretty much just its own original take on a classic character.
and yeah, and which I can fine, that's fair. I also kind of thought as much as I liked again it's I'm sure I'm going to rewatch this and have some things I'm saying now I might completely disagree with, or I might,
Yeah,
have more things to say. But I kind of, it's like, as much as I did like the fact that, oh, it leads up right until the Wayne's shooting, which is going to be the start of Batman,
yeah.
I feel like it was a little too perfect. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't completely it made sense, but it wasn't necessarily completely necessary for that to happen. It was
Well,
time.
I felt like it was a good ending point of
It
just
was a
like,
good ending
hey, the
point.
Joker's birth was also the birth of Batman.
Okay, yeah, I mean, it was a good ending point. It just seemed a little too on the nose. That was my only thing. But it was a good ending. Like, I'm not disagreeing with
Well,
that.
I feel like they also kind of needed to tie it back into the Batman universe because
Yeah,
for the most part, the Waynes weren't that much of a pivotal point in the movie. Beside of like, is he my father? Which literally lasted a scene for like maybe that
yeah,
lasted maybe like I don't know, like a quarter of the movie was just him focusing on that, and as soon as he did, it was just him focusing on like, how can I get my life together?
yeah.
So
Um,
I felt like it was kind of necessary to tie it back into the Batman universe to fully establish like, yes, I am the Joker, and if you don't remember that, here's Bruce Wayne's parents getting shot.
yeah. I think I just didn't really, I'm still unsure if I was on board with the fact that their death was because of the Joker. Because I think the idea was that that's just completely separate, but the fact that it's
Ye-
tied back to that, I don't know if I'm not I'm still in debate. I think it's a definitely I don't know. Again, I paw over things for a long time before I come to like a you know me like I so
Yes, yeah, I know you. I just felt like it was a good point that like he wasn't directly involved in their death, but it was someone
adjacent.
involved in the riot that he caused of like the movement of like the whole like clown Joker movement that someone involved in that did carry out the murder of Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Yeah,
So I felt like it was kind of cool that he indirectly did kill Bruce Wayne's parents
yeah,
because a
yeah.
lot of the time, well, not a lot of the times, but a couple of the origins of the Joker, he is the one who directly killed his parents.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I know the Flashpoint paradox where the Batman Bruce is the one that dies and Batman is Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne becomes the Joker. That's
yeah,
all the only other
and then in the Batman movie that Tim Burton directed, where
Michael
Jack Nicholson
Keaton.
was the Joker.
Oh yeah.
The beginning of that, Jack Nicholson, before he was like, the notorious gangster that he was a hitman for that same mob, and he was the one who carried out the hit on Thomas and Martha Wayne.
Okay.
It's
So
like, hey kid, you ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? It's like, what? Oh, it's just something I say to all my victims. And then Bruce Wayne remembers that and has a flashback to the killer of his parents saying the exact same thing.
damn. Okay, damn.
Yep.
I think that's the thing that's I mean, I think that's the thing that's really interesting, especially with DC as opposed to Marvel, because Marvel is it kind of now I know Marvel also goes to takes things from multiple comics, but it all
Yeah.
kind of feels like it ties together. Whereas for DC, because it's not, I mean, I mean, I aside from like Justice League and like one and that Batman, that Superman, that kind of stuff. It kind of seems like with DC, lore is kind of all over the place. Which I is because
I,
it's not attached to a major studio like Marvel is to
well, well, I mean, DC is attached to a major studio of like Warner Brothers. It's just Warner Brothers is having such a hard time trying to catch up with the MCU because MCU had so many years to establish a cinematic universe, whereas DC has really been struggling with that. And they did attempt that with like the Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League. They did attempt that. It just
They
didn't
need to
work. So
not.
they're just they're more or less scrapping that and just doing their own individual solo
Yeah,
movies where it's just kind of in the continuity of their own like
yeah,
uh superheroes, not so much connected as a whole. um I mean, they still might try to do like spin-offs and like crossovers and like stuff like that, but for the most part it's not going to be at the same level as Marvel, because Marvel comics are just as complicated, if not more, than
yeah.
DC comics.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. um, they. I get why they're competing, but competing doesn't seem to help. I remember your I remember. Still remember after you saw Justice League and you told me Aquaman had no reason to be there, and I said, "Well, what did Aquaman do?" You went, "Oh, Aquaman stuff."
Yeah, he literally did not, like, Jason Momoa literally just like swam up to like an underwater camera, punched it, and that was it. That was his contribution.
I mean, even Hawkeye was more
In Batman
involved in
yeah,
Thor.
yeah, yeah. You know you're doing bad when Hawkeye, who has like
30 seconds of it's like 20 seconds, right? Of like
yeah, yeah, when Hawkeye has more of a character developed in Thor than Aquaman does in Justice League. It's like, how did you get it that bad?
oh boy. So final verdict for Joker.
Final verdict: you should absolutely watch this movie. It deserves all of the like Oscar praise and nominations that it has right now, which it currently has 11. I'm pretty sure. Um, yeah, I would be very surprised if Joaquin Phoenix does not get uh like Best Actor for his portrayal in this movie.
So
Definitely watch
yeah.
it if you haven't seen it, and if you've already seen it, buy this.
Mine again. Uh, it has been where we picked one of the reasons we picked Joker is because of award season, and we both. I think around the time we were saying, hey, we should make Movie Reel into a podcast. Joker had just come out. We both saw Joker, so it is fitting that
Yeah,
this is our first one. Um,
yeah.
I
It was
yeah.
like one of the last movies that we saw before we did it while we were at Chico, and it is just now coming out on DVD.
So mine I'm still kind of putting together my own thoughts on it. I overall do think it is performance wise, Joaquin Phoenix was fantastic. Um, it's a really really good side story because the Joker is a really really fascinating character. So I think there's definitely a lot going. I agree with a lot of nominations, such as which we're gonna talk about that in a second, but such as like the uh I don't know her name. I can't pronounce her name. I apologize, but the woman the composer for Joker, she won the Golden Globe. I believe she's
Yeah,
nominated for an Oscar, and I think she might be the first female composer to be nominated, but she was definitely the first female to win, which is really cool. Um, Unfortunate that there's not a lot of female composers, but which is really really cool that for even no matter what she's making history. Um, it is definitely a solid movie. I
yeah,
kind of expressed that I did feel like there were some things that just kind of seemed off to me. Um, I'm definitely between the two of us. We both are critics. I'm definitely a lot more nitpicky. It's just tiny things tend to I don't know, it's just these teeny tiny things tend to bother me more. I overall do think yeah, it was definitely it was definitely worth my time. I'm glad I saw it. I definitely encourage everyone, especially if you're even if you're not into Batman, like because I
yeah.
mean this story with I think
This
that's
movie
the
isn't like yeah, this movie isn't like your typical superhero movie or like supervillain story. It's just a very tragic drama.
it could be I mean honestly this could be I don't know if this is a good or bad thing, but I think it's kind of good because it makes it more universal. Um, this doesn't even necessarily need to be the Joker. It could be any villain, and it would still
Yeah,
work and be entertaining.
it yeah, no, it doesn't even need to be like a supervillain story. It could just be its own drama separate from like Marvel or DC or any other like intellectual property. This could just be its own story and it still would stand out on its own with really no significant change or difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, definitely. So don't go see it. You have our approval to go see it. Um,
Absolutely.
um. So yeah, so let's talk like movie news. So like I said,
So
Morbius trailer dropped today. I saw that it dropped. I didn't watch it, but I saw that it dropped.
yeah, yeah,
It said,
I watched it. It does kind of have like the same elements that I was expecting it to have of just like, it's not like he's actually a vampire or it's just more like weird genetic manipulation. Um, but I'm kind of curious because it's supposed to have connections to the MCU, even though this is Sony and Sony owns the rights to Spider-Man and they're pretty much doing their own stuff. So I'm
yeah.
very confused as to how this movie is supposed to take place into the MCU because
See,
I'm kind of curious. Is this supposed to connect to the new Blade movie that's supposed to come out with Mahershala Ali? Because
is
that would be really interesting. Because
is Blade is an
it's
MCU?
it's a vampire and Blade fights vampires.
Oh, so Blade's not MCU, or he is?
No, Blade's MCU,
Okay.
and he's going to be in the next phase. Mahershala Ali is
Okay.
already cast to be
Okay.
Blade.
Um.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the next couple of movies in like the MCU are there's one in Vision, the series on Disney Plus, Loki, the series on Disney Plus, the new Blade movie, and then Doctor Strange 2, The Multiverse of Madness, which is supposed to be a horror movie.
What? I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting. So
When
we're
does
going to see some
when does that
weird
come out?
what?
Oh, that comes out 2021. Oh, so we have time.
Yeah. That comes out not anytime soon, but that's
um.
going to be really interesting because we're going to see some like weird like eldritch horrors up against Doctor Strange. So we're going to see a lot of more of his like weird interdimensional threats, kind of like Dormammu, but it's just Dormammu rather than like his human cultists.
What?
We're going to see like a lot of like weird inhuman like creations and creatures, which is what I was like first introduced to when I first saw Doctor Strange. Like
I really
there
like
was like
Doctor Strange. Yeah.
there was like an animated short or like an animated film where it was just Doctor Strange and like all these sorcerers fighting all these like weird like demons from like oh, this is from like the plane of fire, and it's literally just like a giant like 20-foot tall panther completely made of fire ripping sorcerers in half, and only these sorcerers can see it. It's like, holy shit, this is dark.
What about What about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings? I know
I
that's coming. That's
genuinely do
dropping in
not
like
know
a year.
that much about it. The only thing I know about like the Ten Rings are the Mandarin, but
Oh,
that's
okay.
that's already happened. And then there was the terrorist organization that kidnapped Tony Stark at, like way in
Oh,
the beginning, called the Ten
there's
Rings.
just God, there's just so much stuff coming out in
Yeah,
MCU in the next couple. There's one series called What If, and it's like if these all these different
yeah,
moments, if they, which I
I'm
think is,
really excited for
I
that.
think that's a great concept. I just think the title is terrible. Just What If? I'm like, come on, you can do better than that. It.
I actually really like that title
I think it just.
because it's pretty. Because they're pretty much just combining like all these like weird like alternate versions of Marvel comics, so it's like you can't really pick and choose from all those other comics, because they're literally
Okay.
combining like like steampunk like Captain America, like steampunk Iron Man. They're combining Marvel zombies, which is going to be really cool. It's T'Challa as Star Lord, I think, was in the trailer that I saw a while back. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's a fitting title because it's just what if, and it's just them interpreting all these different like short uh, comic series that have just wildly varying
Yeah.
timelines to what we're now
I
we're
mean, it's
we're
gonna no,
familiar
it's
with.
gonna be really cool. Like I saw I'm like that sounds really awesome. I think it was just because the title, the
The title
the
threw you off.
graphics looked really it just looked like any other Marvel movie. It just was what if? And I'm like,
Yeah,
okay. Um well, all right. Um yeah, so yeah,
yeah,
anyway, that sounds really cool. And Morbius sounds I saw that it dropped. I didn't watch it. I'll probably watch it after this. Um
yeah.
but
But
we
yeah,
got to talk
I, I'm
the sorry, you go.
I'm really kind of yeah, I'm really kind of curious to see how Morbius kind of turns out. It's only been like a day since that's dropped, so I haven't really heard much about it. I kind of forgot that it was even being made. Um, like I just kind of heard that like that was like slowly in like development hell after Venom, but after Venom did such a success, I guess that was still being made in the background because Venom kind of took the forefront, and then Venom 2. So I thought Venom 2 was going to be made first before Morbius, or Morbius
Mhm.
wasn't even going to be made at all. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of
I
curious and
kind of love that.
excited about
I
that.
I actually speaking of that, I love when that happens. I feel like I'll be hearing about like, "Oh, whatever, this is happening, this isn't happening," and you get disappointed and then it does happen. So I got really excited over the weekend because I heard about this concept. I think it got introduced to Fox um like 20 it was like 2014, 2015. I remember reading about it 2015 and I was super excited and I guess it got shelved whatever, but now it's been announced it's going to happen. It's going to be a limited series on sci-fi, sci-fi. I don't how do you say it?
Sci-fi,
Sci-fi.
sci-fi,
I don't know.
sci-fi.
Sci-fi, I don't know.
I haven't heard it called Sifi since it was like it first changed its anagram from SCIFI to
I thought it was sci-fi,
SYFY.
just I wasn't sure.
Sifi. I'm
Sci-fi.
just watching the Sifi network.
Yeah, with their they got a show with Seed Bean and I don't know. Anyway, I'm not perfect. Anyway,
Okay, so what's the show?
um, it's called League of Pan. I feel like I've talked about this with you because I thought it was such a cool concept, and then it got shelved, I guess. And
I don't remember this.
it's. I mean, it's
It's
fine. I'm gonna
got Sean
explain
Bean
it.
in it.
What? Sean?
It's
Uh,
got you said it had Sean Bean in it.
no, I was just saying another thing wrong on purpose. That was like Sean Bean.
Oh,
I said Scene Bean.
oh, okay. Well, so okay, I'm confused. So what?
No, no,
What?
no.
Okay,
League of
I'm
Pan.
so confused
Okay,
right now.
okay.
Yeah.
It was announced over the weekend, so there's a called League of Pan. It's been picked up by Sci-Fi. It's gonna be a limited series, and it's about so if anyone's familiar with the original Peter Pan, um, the so in the Disney, Wendy, Michael, John go home, but in the original story, the Lost Boys go home with them, and it takes place. They're all adults now, and they essentially have to something's wrong, something's off, and they have to kind of reunite and I guess go back to I think they have to go back to Neverland or something. The concept seems a teeny bit different than what I first read about it,
Okay.
which was I guess the original idea that I had first heard. I don't know if this is still the same and they just didn't say it, but the original concept that I heard was they are all adults and living it was I think said to be modern day, which I thought was kind of weird,
Okay.
but
So
yeah.
okay. So it's kind of like them trying to do Tin Man again.
Uh sure.
Are
I don't know.
are you familiar with
I
Tin
think
Man?
I'm familiar with it. I don't know enough about it to
Yeah.
say yes. I think I know of it.
It's pretty much just like a unique interpretation of the
Wizard of
Wizard of
Oz.
Oz story.
Yeah, and so they're all like, and they have to go. I don't know. I love Peter Pan, and I just love that. I just love that idea of it being in the real world too. And I think I had originally it was that they were being hunted down. They were each being killed off, and so they had to band together to figure out what's going on. And I thought that
Okay,
was really
I can get behind that.
but it just said it didn't really specify if that's still the case. It just said that like they have to put aside old rivalries and
Yeah.
whatever and join together. And so I'm really excited. It's going to be a limited series, which I'm also really excited because I think more shows need to do that because I
Yeah.
feel like we're always seeing shows that like they shouldn't be just because
Yeah. Yeah.
they should
And you know what?
they should end
Oh,
appropriately.
sorry. Go ahead.
no, I just no, sorry. I feel like more shows need to be limited series because they keep going and going when it's like, you could end it just to I know you don't want to disappoint your fans, but they're going to have respect if you end it appropriately as opposed
Yeah,
to just keep going. So, I will say when I first heard the concept, as much as I loved it, I could very easily see it being canceled, which is
yeah.
probably why it got shelved. Um and
So,
yeah.
speaking of ending it, I think it's about time we end this and
Wow,
introduce what
God.
we're talking about for our next episode. Great segue, am I right?
Oh God. Um,
So
do you remember
yeah,
on like
next
yeah.
week we're gonna be talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, directed by Quentin Tarantino, starring
What?
Brad Pitt.
Tarantino is the director for that? What? Really?
Yeah, yeah,
Whoa. I
really.
love
So this movie's gonna be
if
super
you
violent.
I love how if you look online for the Oscar noms, so he's shocker, Quentin Tarantino is nominated and his picture is just him holding an Oscar,
Yeah.
which is like him being nominated
It's
and
like,
he's just
oh,
like
I guess he won already.
yeah. Yeah, so
He literally killed the competition, folks.
actually before we sign off, I got to say
Yeah,
talk about the Oscar noms really quick, sorry.
yeah,
I was I mean all they're all well deserved. I was just very disappointed cuz for a while so for the Golden Globes, I thought the Oscars were going to be between I thought for best actor, I thought it was going to be between in my opinion Joaquin Phoenix and Taron Egerton. So Taron Egerton won for best comedy or musical for Rocket Man for playing Elton John, and
yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix won for Joker for drama. And I thought it was going to be between those two, but no, Taron Egerton's not even nominated, and I was really bummed out. I'm like, what? Not Rocket Man's not even. It has one nomination for best song, which is well deserved. But I was
Yeah.
very surprised. There are 9 best movies for best picture. 9. It's usually 5. Occasionally they do add more, but 9. That's very like yikes. That's a lot. I'm like, okay. So I'm kind of bummed about that. But I mean, I don't know. I have my ideas on which are gonna run, but now I'm pretty confident that Joaquin Phoenix is gonna win the Oscar because
Oh,
my
absolutely.
nothing against. I haven't seen. Hopefully, we do Marriage Story. I haven't seen Adam Driver in Marriage Story, and Leonardo DiCaprio was awesome in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yeah,
But he
and
didn't
you're
win the
gonna
Golden
hear
Globe.
more about that next week,
Yeah,
folks. That is a really solid movie. I
yeah.
was genuinely excited and on the edge of my seat throughout that movie.
So yeah, so we'll talk about that next time. So
Yeah,
until then, I'm Samantha.
I'm Kevin, and this has been Movie Reel.
Yeah, and bye.
Bye bye.